Let me ask you a question. How many of you here today want more out of life? Well, of course you do. That's why you're here. But let me tell you something fascinating. Most people want more, but they don't understand the fundamental truth about getting what you want. And that truth is this: for things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. You see, success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Let me say that again, because it's just that important. Success is not something you pursue. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Most people have it backwards. They're always chasing, always pursuing, always running after success as if it were some elusive butterfly that they might someday catch. But that's not how success works. Success is like a shadow. You can't catch it directly. But become the right kind of person, and it follows you wherever you go. Now, I want to share with you what I believe are the fundamental principles for getting whatever you want in life. Not just material things, mind you, although those will come too. I'm talking about the whole package: meaningful relationships, vibrant health, financial prosperity, peace of mind, and a legacy worth leaving. The first principle is simply this: you must take full responsibility for your life. Full, complete, 100% responsibility. No exceptions, no excuses, no blame game. You see, the day you graduate from childhood to adulthood is the day you stop blaming others and start taking responsibility. It's the day you stop making excuses and start making progress. I meet people all the time who tell me about all the reasons why they can't succeed. The economy is bad. Their boss doesn't like them. They didn't get the right education. They were born on the wrong side of the tracks. And I always tell them the same thing: don't spend your life explaining why you don't have what you want. Spend your life creating what you want. The truth is, life doesn't care about your excuses. Success doesn't care about your background. Achievement doesn't care about what happened to you yesterday. All that matters is what you do today and tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. So stop telling yourself the story of why you can't and start asking yourself how you can. I once had a mentor tell me, "Jim, don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for fewer problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom." And that changed my life. It put the responsibility right where it belongs, squarely on my shoulders. Now, let me tell you a story. Years ago, I met a young man who came from nothing. His family was poor. He had limited education. And by all accounts, he should have remained stuck in those circumstances. But this young man refused to let his circumstances define him. He took responsibility. He educated himself. He worked harder on himself than he did on his job. And today, he's one of the most successful businessmen I know. When I asked him his secret, do you know what he told me? He said, "Mr. Rohn, I discovered early on that the marketplace only rewards value. So I decided to become valuable. I decided to work harder on myself than I did on my job." What profound wisdom from such a young man. Which brings me to the second principle of getting whatever you want. You must continually work on your personal development. Now, this is a game changer, folks, because most people work hard at their job, but they don't work hard on themselves. And that's a mistake. You see, your income rarely exceeds your personal development. Let me say that again, because it's $1 million insight. Your income rarely exceeds your personal development. If you want to have more, you must become more. Success is not something you get. It's something you attract by the person you become. I always recommend to my audiences to develop what I call a personal development program. Read at least 30 minutes every day. Listen to educational and inspirational audio programs in your car. Attend seminars and workshops. Find mentors who can guide you. Associate with people who challenge you to rise higher. Let me ask you a question. How many books have you read in the last 90 days? How many seminars have you attended this year? How many new skills have you developed in the last 6 months? Your answers to these questions will tell you a lot about where you're heading. You know, there's a phrase one often uses: work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Why? Because if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. But if you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. Your job gives you a paycheck, but your personal development gives you a fortune. I remember when I first started my journey of personal development. I was a young man struggling financially, working at Sears. And then one day, someone invited me to a seminar. And at that seminar, I heard something that changed my life. The speaker said, if you want things to change, you've got to change. If you want things to get better, you've got to get better. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I had been hoping things would change around me without me having to change. I had been hoping my paycheck would grow while I remained the same. But that's not how life works. Life responds to one thing and one thing only: your level of development, your level of growth. So I started reading books. I started listening to tapes. That's what we had back then. I started attending every seminar I could afford. I found mentors who could guide me. And guess what happened? My life began to change. Not overnight, mind you, there's no such thing as overnight success. But step by step, little by little, day by day, my life began to transform. Now, let's talk about the third principle for getting whatever you want. You must set specific, measurable, and time-bound goals. You'd be amazed at how many people I meet who have vague wishes instead of clear goals. They say things like, I want to be happy, or I want to be successful, or I want to be rich. But those aren't goals, those are wishes. A goal has specificity. A goal has a deadline. A goal has a plan attached to it. Let me give you an example. Instead of saying, I want to be financially secure, say, I want to have $50,000 in my savings account by December 31st of next year. Do you see the difference? One is a wish, the other is a goal. I've found that most people overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in 5 years. Why? Because they don't understand the power of consistent daily action toward a specific goal. Here's what I recommend. Write down your goals. There's something almost magical about putting your goals on paper. It's as if you're telling the universe, this is what I intend to accomplish. Then break those goals down into smaller, manageable tasks. Big goals can seem overwhelming, but when you break them down into daily actions, they become doable. And here's a tip. Review your goals daily. Keep them in front of you. Don't just set them and forget them. Make them part of your daily consciousness, because what you focus on expands. What you think about, you bring about. I remember working with a couple who told me they wanted to buy their dream home. But when I asked them to describe this dream home in detail, they couldn't do it. They had a vague idea, but nothing specific. So I had them cut out pictures of homes they liked, write down all the features they wanted, and even drive through neighborhoods they found appealing. Within 6 months, they had not only found their dream home, but had put a down payment on it. Why? Because they had transformed a vague wish into a specific goal with a plan of action. They knew exactly what they wanted, and that clarity guided their decisions and actions. The fourth principle for getting whatever you want is understanding the power of your philosophy. Now, this might sound a bit abstract, but stay with me because it's crucially important. Your philosophy is your view of life, your attitude toward things, your perspective on how the world works. And it shapes everything, your choices, your behaviors, your results. Let me give you a simple example. 2 people are laid off from their jobs. One sees it as a tragedy, a setback, a reason to complain. The other sees it as an opportunity, a chance to start fresh, a push toward something better. Same circumstance, different philosophies, and as a result, different outcomes. Your philosophy determines how you interpret and respond to life's events. And here's the exciting part: you get to choose your philosophy. You get to decide how you view the world and your place in it. So choose a philosophy that empowers you rather than limits you. I've always believed that life doesn't respond to what we need or what we want. It responds to what we deserve. And what we deserve is determined by the value we create, by the person we become. If you want more, become more valuable. If you want better, become better. This leads me to the 5th principle. You must understand and master the law of sowing and reaping. Some call it karma, others call it cause and effect. But whatever you call it, it's one of the most powerful laws in the universe. You reap what you sow, you get what you give, you receive in proportion to what you contribute. Most people want to reap first and sow later, if at all. They want the harvest before they've planted the seeds. They want the rewards before they've created the value. But that's not how life works. You have to plant before you can harvest. You have to give before you can get. You have to contribute before you can collect. I always tell people, if you want more money, don't chase money, instead become more valuable. Money is attracted to value like a magnet. If you want better relationships, don't demand more from others, instead become a better person yourself. The quality of your relationships reflects the quality of the person you are. This might seem obvious, but it's amazing how many people miss it. They're busy asking, what can I get? Instead of asking, what can I give? They're focused on their rights rather than their responsibilities. They're thinking about what the world owes them instead of what they owe the world. But the great ones, the ones who achieve extraordinary success, they flip it around. They focus on giving rather than getting. They ask, how can I create more value? How can I serve more people? How can I make a bigger contribution? And as a result, they end up getting more than they ever could have by directly pursuing what they want. I remember a business owner who came to one of my seminars. His business was struggling, and he was desperate to increase his revenue. When I suggested that he focus on adding more value to his customers, he was skeptical. I don't have time for that, he said. I need sales now. But he decided to give it a try. He started by asking his customers what else they needed, what problems they were facing that his company could solve. Based on their feedback, he developed new services, enhanced existing ones, and trained his staff to provide exceptional customer care. Within 6 months, his sales had doubled. Within a year, they had tripled. He wasn't directly pursuing sales, he was pursuing value creation. And the sales followed naturally, almost effortlessly. Now, let's talk about the sixth principle. You must master the art of effective time management. Time is our most precious resource. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, the same 168 hours in a week. What sets the extraordinary apart from the ordinary is how they use those hours. I like to remind people that time is more valuable than money. You can always get more money, but you can never get more time. Once it's gone forever. So the question becomes, how are you investing your time? Notice I said investing, not spending, because that's how the successful see time as an investment that should yield a return. They don't spend time, they invest it. They don't kill time, they make time work for them. Here's what I suggest. First, become aware of how you're currently using your time. Keep a time log for a week. Record what you do in 30-minute increments. You'll be shocked at how much time is wasted on low-value activities. Next, clarify your priorities. What are the high-value activities that move you toward your goals? What are the low-value activities that just keep you busy without producing meaningful results? Then, schedule your priorities rather than prioritizing your schedule. Most people look at their calendar and then decide what they can fit in. The successful start with their priorities and build their calendar around those. I always recommend the 80/20 rule for time management. This rule states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. Identify that crucial 20% and focus your time and energy there. Eliminate, delegate, or minimize the rest. I once coached a woman who was working 70 hours a week but still not achieving her goals. When we analyzed her time, we discovered that she was spending over 30 hours a week on activities that contributed very little to her key objectives. By eliminating, delegating, and streamlining these activities, she was able to cut her work week to 50 hours while doubling her productivity. Time management isn't about doing more things. It's about doing the right things, the important things, the things that yield the greatest return on your time investment. The seventh principle for getting whatever you want is mastering your emotions. Your emotions can be your greatest allies or your worst enemies. They can propel you forward or hold you back. They can inspire your best work or trigger your worst behaviors. Most people are at the mercy of their emotions. They're reactive rather than proactive. They let their feelings drive their actions instead of their values and goals. But the successful have learned to manage their emotional states. They've learned to generate the emotions that serve them and transform or release the emotions that don't. Fear is a perfect example. Everyone feels fear, but the successful don't let fear stop them. They feel the fear and do what needs to be done anyway. They understand that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite the fear. Or consider motivation. The successful don't wait to feel motivated before they take action. They take action first and the motivation follows. They understand that action often precedes motivation, not the other way around. I always remind people of the power of rituals for managing emotions. Want to feel more confident? Stand tall, breathe deeply, and speak with authority. Want to feel more gratitude? Start each day by listing 5 things you're thankful for. Want to feel more energetic? Exercise regularly, eat nutritious foods, and get adequate sleep. Your emotions respond to your physiology, your focus, and your language. Change these, and you change how you feel. And when you change how you feel, you change what you do and what you achieve. I remember working with a talented writer who was struggling with procrastination. Every time she sat down to write, she'd feel overwhelmed and end up checking email or social media instead. We created a pre-writing ritual for her 5 minutes of meditation, a specific playlist of music, a clean workspace, and a clear goal for the writing session. This ritual helped her shift her emotional state from overwhelmed to focused and creative. Her productivity soared, and within 6 months, she had completed the book she'd been struggling with for years. The 8th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of association. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. The people you spend time with shape your thinking, your beliefs, your behaviors, and ultimately your results. There's a saying I often share: you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Think about that for a moment. Look at the 5 people you're around the most. Are they lifting you up or pulling you down? Are they challenging you to grow or enabling you to stay comfortable? Are they expanding your vision or reinforcing your limitations? I recommend conducting what I call an association audit. List the people you spend the most time with and then rate their influence on you. Are they positive or negative? Supportive or critical? Successful or struggling? Action-oriented or all talk? Based on this audit, make some decisions. Perhaps you need to spend less time with certain people and more time with others. Perhaps you need to find new associations, mentors, peers, or communities that will challenge you and support your growth. Now, I'm not suggesting you abandon family or friends who are going through tough times, but I am suggesting that you be intentional about who you allow to influence your thinking in your life. Surround yourself with people who believe in you, who inspire you, who model the success you seek. I once worked with a young entrepreneur who was struggling to grow his business. When I looked at his associations, I discovered that none of his close friends were entrepreneurs. They were all employees with an employee mindset. So I suggested he join an entrepreneurs group, find a mentor who would build a successful business, and spend more time in environments where entrepreneurial thinking was the norm. Within a year, his business had grown by 300%. Why? Because he was now surrounded by people who thought differently, who saw opportunities where others saw obstacles, who understood the challenges he was facing and could offer guidance based on experience. The ninth principle for getting whatever you want is the power of your words. Words have incredible power to create and power to destroy, power to lift up and power to tear down, power to heal and power to wound. Most people underestimate the impact of their words on others and on themselves. They speak carelessly, mindlessly, habitually, but the successful are intentional with their language. They understand that words shape perception, and perception shapes reality. Listen to how you talk to yourself and about yourself. Are your words empowering or limiting? Do you say things like, I can't afford it, or that's not possible for someone like me, or I'm not good at that? These statements become self-fulfilling prophecies. They restrict your thinking and your actions. Instead, ask better questions like, how can I afford it? Or how can I make this possible? Or how can I become good at this? These questions open up possibilities. They engage your creativity. They set your mind working on solutions rather than accepting limitations. And watch how you talk about others and to others. Your words can inspire, discourage, motivate, or deflate. Choose to be someone whose words lift others up, someone who speaks life into people's dreams and aspirations. I remember coaching a team leader who was frustrated with his team's performance. His language was full of criticism and complaint. They're lazy, he'd say. They don't care. They're not capable of doing better. I suggested he change his language. Instead of focusing on what was wrong, focus on what was possible. Instead of criticizing, offer specific guidance and encouragement. Instead of assuming the worst about his team's intentions, assume the best. He was skeptical, but agreed to try. Within 3 months, his team's performance had improved dramatically. Same team, different language, different results. The 10th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of continuous learning. In today's rapidly changing world, what you know today may be obsolete tomorrow. The only sustainable competitive advantage is your ability to learn faster than your competition. The most successful people I know are voracious learners. They read books, listen to podcasts, attend seminars, seek out mentors. They're curious about everything. They ask questions, they experiment. They're not afraid to say, I don't know, but I'll find out. I recommend what I call the 5-hour rule. Spend at least 5 hours a week in deliberate learning, reading, reflecting, experimenting. This is not passive learning like scrolling through social media or binge watching TV. This is active, intentional learning focused on acquiring knowledge and skills that will move you toward your goals. And here's a tip: learn across disciplines. Don't just study your field. Study psychology to understand people better. Study history to gain perspective. Study philosophy to deepen your thinking. Study art to enhance your creativity. The most innovative ideas often come from combining insights from different domains. I worked with a financial advisor who transformed his practice by applying principles from Disney's approach to customer experience. While his competitors were focused on financial returns, he created an extraordinary client experience that made people feel special, valued, and cared for. His business quadrupled in 3 years. The 11th principle for getting whatever you want is understanding the power of discipline. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. It's doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. Most people live by their feelings. If they feel like doing something, they do it. If they don't feel like it, they don't. But the successful live by their commitments. They do what they committed to do, regardless of how they feel in the moment. Discipline isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. It's not about never falling. It's about getting back up every time you fall. It's not about doing extraordinary things, it's about doing ordinary things consistently well. I often tell people that success is as a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day. It's the compound effect of daily disciplines that leads to extraordinary achievements. Think about your health. It's not the workout you do once in a while that makes the difference, it's the consistent daily exercise. It's not the occasional healthy meal, it's your habitual food choices. Small, consistent actions add up to significant results over time. I remember coaching a woman who wanted to write a book. She had been talking about it for years, but never seemed to make progress. When I asked her about her writing routine, she admitted she didn't have one. She wrote when inspiration struck, which wasn't often. I suggested she commit to writing for just 30 minutes every morning, no matter what. No excuses, no exceptions. Just 30 minutes, whether she felt inspired or not, whether the writing was good or bad. Within a year, she had completed her manuscript. Not because she had found some magical burst of inspiration, but because she had developed the discipline of daily writing. 30 minutes a day, consistently applied, added up to a complete book. The 12th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of resilience. The road to success is rarely a straight line. It's filled with obstacles, setbacks, failures, and unexpected challenges. What separates those who achieve their dreams from those who don't isn't the absence of these challenges, it's how they respond to them. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, to adapt to change, to keep going in the face of setbacks. It's not about never getting knocked down, it's about getting up one more time than you fall. I've studied successful people for decades, and one common trait I've observed is their response to failure. They don't see failure as final, they see it as feedback. They don't see it as a reflection of their worth, they see it as information they can use to adjust their approach. Thomas Edison famously said of his many failed attempts to invent the light bulb, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." That's the mindset of resilience. I recommend what I call the 48-hour rule for dealing with setbacks. When something goes wrong, give yourself 48 hours to feel the disappointment, frustration, or sadness, but then move on. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What's my next move? I worked with an entrepreneur whose first business failed spectacularly. He lost everything, his savings, his home, his confidence. For a few weeks he was devastated, but then he started asking better questions. What did this experience teach him? What would he do differently next time? What strengths did he discover in himself during this challenging time? Within 2 years he had built a new business that was 10 times more successful than his first. The failure, painful as it was, provided invaluable lessons that contributed to his eventual success. The 13th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of integrity. Success without integrity is failure. Achievement without character is hollow. What good is it to gain the whole world but lose your soul in the process? Integrity means being whole and undivided. It means your words match your actions. It means your private behavior aligns with your public image. It means you keep your promises, honor your commitments, tell the truth, and take responsibility for your actions. In today's world, integrity can seem old-fashioned. We see people cutting corners, breaking promises, bending rules, and sometimes achieving short-term success as a result. But sustainable, meaningful success, the kind that brings not just achievement but fulfillment, requires integrity. I always tell people, your reputation takes years to build and seconds to destroy. Protect it, value it. Understand that your word is your bond, your handshake is your contract, your commitment is your character. I remember consulting with a company that was considering cutting corners to meet a deadline for a major client. The shortcut would have been nearly undetectable, and it would have saved them time and money. But the CEO refused. That's not how we do business, he said. We deliver what we promise, no exceptions. They missed the deadline by 2 days and had to have an uncomfortable conversation with the client. But they delivered a product that met their standards, and that client went on to become their biggest advocate, referring millions of dollars in business to them over the years. Why? Because they knew this was a company they could trust. The 14th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of contribution. The most successful people I know define success not just by what they accomplish or acquire, but by the difference they make, the lives they touch, the legacy they leave. There's a fundamental human need to contribute beyond ourselves, to know that our life matters, that we've made a difference. When this need is met, we experience a level of fulfillment that no amount of personal achievement or material acquisition can provide. I encourage people to ask themselves regularly, how am I contributing? How am I adding value? How am I making things better for others? These questions shift your focus from getting to giving, from consumption to contribution, from what's in it for me to how can I make a difference. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you focus on contribution, when you make adding value to others a primary goal, the things you want tend to come to you more easily. It's as if the universe responds to genuine service with abundance. I worked with a salesperson who was struggling to meet his targets. His approach was all about closing the deal, making the commission. I suggested he shift his focus from selling to serving, from making money to solving problems. Instead of asking, how can I make this sale? Ask, how can I help this person solve their problem or achieve their goal? His sales doubled within 6 months. Why? Because customers could feel the difference. They could tell he genuinely cared about their needs, not just his commission. They trusted him, referred others to him, and became loyal, long-term clients. The 15th principle for getting whatever you want is understanding the power of your choices. Every day you make choices what to focus on, what to believe, how to interpret events, how to respond to challenges, what actions to take, what words to speak. These choices might seem small and insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate over time to create your life. As Jim Rohn once said, our lives are a sum total of the choices we have made. Most people make choices unconsciously, habitually, reactively. They're on autopilot, recycling yesterday's choices without conscious awareness. But the successful are intentional about their choices. They understand that in the space between stimulus and response lies their freedom to choose, and in that choice lies their growth and their happiness. I encourage people to develop what I call choice awareness. Throughout the day, pause and ask yourself, what am I choosing right now? Is this choice aligned with my values and goals? Is this choice moving me toward the life I want or away from it? I remember coaching a woman who was constantly stressed and overwhelmed. When we examined her choices, we discovered that she was saying yes to too many requests and commitments that weren't aligned with her priorities. She was choosing to please others at the expense of her own well-being and her most important goals. We created a simple decision filter. Before saying yes to any request, she would ask herself 3 questions. Is this aligned with my values and goals? Do I genuinely want to do this? What will I have to say no to if I say yes to this? This simple practice transformed her life, reducing her stress and creating space for what truly mattered to her. The 16th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of persistence. Nothing worthwhile is achieved without persistence. No great success is achieved overnight. The overnight success story you hear about is usually the result of years of persistent effort that nobody saw. Persistence means continuing to take action in pursuit of your goal despite difficulty, opposition, or discouragement. It's pressing on when everything in you wants to give up. It's maintaining your commitment when results are slow in coming. Most people overestimate what they can achieve in a year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10 years. They're too quick to give up when they don't see immediate results. But the successful understand that significant achievement takes time. They're willing to persist through the plateau periods, the setbacks, the moments of doubt. I like to remind people of the bamboo tree. When you plant a bamboo seed, nothing happens for the first 4 years. No visible growth, no sprout, nothing, but during those 4 years, the seed is developing an extensive root system underground. Then in the 5th year, the bamboo shoots up 90 feet in just 6 weeks. Was the bamboo's growth just those 6 weeks, or was it 5 years? Of course it was 5 years. The first 4 years of invisible growth made the visible growth possible. I worked with an author whose first book was rejected by 27 publishers before the 28th said yes. That book went on to sell over 1 million copies and launch his career as a best-selling author. If he had given up after the 10th rejection or the 20th or even the 26th, none of that would have happened. The 17th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of gratitude. Gratitude is the gateway to abundance. When you're grateful for what you have, you open yourself to receiving more. When you're focused on what's missing or what's wrong, you close yourself off from the flow of abundance. Most people have it backward. They think, I'll be grateful when I achieve my goals, when I have what I want, when my life is the way I want it to be. But that's not how gratitude works. Gratitude isn't the result of having what you want. It's the pathway to getting what you want. I recommend a simple daily practice. Each morning or evening, write down 3 things you're grateful for. They can be big things like your health or your family, or small things like a cup of coffee or a beautiful sunset. The size doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling of genuine appreciation. This practice shifts your focus from what's missing to what's present, from what's wrong to what's right. And that shift changes your energy, your attitude, your actions, and ultimately your results. I remember coaching a business owner who was constantly stressed about money. His business was actually doing well, but he was always focused on the gap between where he was and where he wanted to be. This focus created a feeling of scarcity and lack, which affected his decisions and his interactions with clients and employees. I suggested he start each day by reviewing his financial statements with gratitude rather than anxiety. Instead of thinking we're still not at our goal, think, look how far we've come. Look at the clients who trust us. Look at the impact we're making. This simple shift in focus transformed his experience of his business. He became more confident, more creative, more inspiring to his team. And within a year, his revenue had increased by 40%. Same business, different focus, different results. The 18th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of adaptability. In today's rapidly changing world, the ability to adapt, to learn, unlearn, and relearn is more valuable than ever. The marketplace rewards adaptability and punishes rigidity. Most people resist change. They find comfort in the familiar, even when the familiar isn't serving them well. They hold on to methods, mindsets, and models long after they've outlived their usefulness. But the successful embrace change. They see it not as a threat, but as an opportunity to grow, to innovate, to differentiate themselves. I encourage people to ask themselves regularly, what assumptions am I making that might no longer be valid? What methods am I using that might be outdated? What beliefs am I holding that might be limiting me? These questions help you stay adaptable, open to new ideas and approaches. I worked with a company that had been successful with a particular marketing approach for years. But as the market changed, their results began to decline. Rather than doubling down on what had worked in the past, they were willing to question their assumptions, experiment with new approaches, and ultimately reinvent their marketing strategy. It was uncomfortable at first. There was a learning curve, some missteps, some uncertainty. But their willingness to adapt allowed them to thrive while competitors who clung to outdated methods struggled or failed. The 19th principle for getting whatever you want is the power of patience. In a world of instant gratification, patience has become a rare and valuable virtue. But significant achievement requires patience, patience to learn, patience to grow, patience to persist through difficulties, patience to let things unfold in their natural time. Most people want instant results. They plant seeds today and dig them up tomorrow to see if they're growing. They start a business and expect profits in the first month. They begin an exercise program and get discouraged when they don't see results after a week. But the successful understand that worthwhile achievements take time. They're willing to delay gratification, to keep putting in the work even when results are slow in coming, to trust the process when immediate outcomes aren't visible. I like to remind people of the law of the harvest. First comes the planting, then comes the watering and weeding and waiting, and only then comes the harvest. You can't rush the process. You can't harvest what you haven't planted. You can't skip the waiting period.